So we've been playing through Ghost Recon Wildlands for the last few days now, and we've got some early impressions of the game. First of all, this is Ubisoft's 10th Ghost Recon game, would you believe? Even though it's the 10th in the series, it actually reminded me of none of the previous Ghost Recon games. It immediately reminded me of a cross between The Division and Far Cry 4, both of which were 2016 releases. Which is quite odd, actually, because Ubisoft Paris, who are the developers of Ghost Recon Wildlands, didn't actually work on either of those two games.
So, in a nutshell, what is this game about?
Well, they've got rid of the sort of futuristic. The last Ghost Recon, as you remember, was Future Soldier. They got rid of the most of the futuristic parts. It's kind of present day now. It's set in Bolivia. Basically, you're one of the Ghost Recon team that's sent in to deal with this situation in Bolivia. There's a proper open world map now. There's none of the linearity of the past games. It is a full Ubisoft map. There's cars, helicopters, etc. You're there basically with a 3-man support squad who can either be AI controlled or co-op controlled players.
The map and setting reminds me a lot of Metal Gear Solid 5.
It's really interesting you should say that, actually, because I don't know what it is, but over the last year or so many games I've been playing, and I'm thinking they're almost trying to go Metal Gear Solid with this. I think the last one I played was probably Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. It just felt like they played Metal Gear Solid 5 and thought, hey, that'd be a good direction to go. I'm getting the same impression with this. I'm going to tell you what basically I liked about this, and then I'm going to tell you what I didn't like. First of all, what I liked. The self-contained bases in the map were actually quite satisfying. So, which is kind of ironic, really, because as I say, it's an open world map, and the parts I enjoyed of the open world were the things that most resembled self-contained missions. And again, this sort of bears fruit with the comparison to Metal Gear Solid. The decision to make the entire game co-op, I think, is a good one, again, and it's not half-assed co-op like we've seen with Far Cry 4, for example, and Assassin's Creed Unity. You can literally have up to 3 real people playing all of the missions with you from start to finish. No compromises, and that is a good decision. And also, the very first thing that I did when I started the game was there's a character customization. Like The Division, the sort of facial customization wasn't terribly detailed, but the clothing customization was actually. There's quite a lot of choice in, whether you wear a ghillie suit or a t-shirt or what kind of trousers and backpack and all of this stuff. You can customize. There's quite a lot of customization there, and I wouldn't be surprised to actually see DLC add-ons to that after the game's released. Let me tell you what I particularly didn't like. First of all, the controls absolutely hit me as soon as I started playing. They were really light and floaty. Now, this is the direct opposite to the main problem with The Division, which The Division, of course, as you will know, was really sort of heavy. Considering it was a third-person cover shooter game, yes, it did get the third-person cover shooting wrong. And I can't help... Yes, absolutely. And, I mean, the difference with this is, obviously, there's much more of an emphasis on stealth. So... I guess, actually, probably The Division's heavier controls would actually be more suitable in this stealth-focused game. And the stealth itself, actually, was actually quite vague and unpredictable, I found. The indicator sort of showing you people noticing you and all that, it wasn't always clear which direction that was coming from. Also, there were sort of incongruences. For example, sometimes you could be dancing around right next to someone and they wouldn't see you, but then his mate, who was standing 2 miles away across the other side of the map, would spot you from over there. So it's, again, considering Ghost Recon is all about third-person cover stealth, the stealth part isn't very good. The teammate AI was less than brilliant, if I'm being truthful. I mean, you do get an order wheel that you can give them orders, standing orders, so you can tell them to, hold position or to regroup in your position and so forth. Or you can just say balls to it, get in there and tear the place up. But they really did require a lot of management. Now, this is something that obviously, if you're playing with real people, that will mitigate that to quite a high degree. But a lot of people won't be playing it in co-op, and I can't help but feel that they're going to have a lot of frustration ahead of them.
I wonder how easy this game will be to play solo, or if it'll be like The Division and very challenging without multiplayer.
Yeah. I think I can already say this will actually be a lot easier in single player than The Division was. I mean, The Division was really... Well, it was just a horrible game, I'd say, in single player. Horrible game. Destiny wasn't great as a solo experience either. This, I think, actually will be better alone, because I played most of the time I've played the game has been solo, and although I do have problems with the controls and the stealth and the teammate AI, etc., it was still playable. And there are difficulty settings as well, unlike The Division, so if you are having problems with it, you can lower that down to whatever's comfortable for you. Now, I mentioned there were cars and helicopters. Where there's cars, there's a driving model, and the driving model in this is awful. It's even worse than The Crew, which is another Ubisoft game. And The Crew, of course, we commented at the time, basically took the driving model from the original Watch Dogs game, made it 1,000 times worse, and then predicated the entire game on it. I don't know how. And what makes this all the more frustrating as well is that I came to this game off of the back of Watch Dogs 2. I've just finished Watch Dogs 2. I've just put about 40 plus hours into that. I love it. I'm working on a review at the moment. And even though Watch Dogs 2 is, I mean, it's the same genre because there is third-person cover shooting, there's even stealth in Watch Dogs. It's a different it's on the different end of the spectrum in terms of that genre. However, Watch Dogs 2 does just about everything that Ghost Recon is going for much, much better.
Which is also by Ubisoft. Exactly.
I mean, they really need to get all their developers together and make them talk to one another. Something else, actually, that makes an unwelcome return in this, something that Watch Dogs 2 didn't have was Ubisoft map syndrome. This has Ubisoft map syndrome. It's literally, I mean, they could just get rid of the Ghost Recon name and call it Ubisoft map syndrome, The Return. There's unlockable areas, tons of icons, loads of resource gathering for the skill tree, etc. The map is just a mess, and as I say, you have to unlock bits of it, and after playing Watch Dogs 2, where you don't have to unlock any of it, I'm just thinking, why go back to that? The cutscenes and interchanges between the characters, basically, when they start talking, they don't seem to stop. It seems really long, dull, long-winded. Weirdly, even though everything is done really po-faced, as again you would expect from a Ghost Recon game, there was this occasional humour interspersed with it, but because the game was so po-faced and humourless on the whole, when the humour was there, it really stuck out. I mean, I like humour in everything. I don't think humour is ever unwelcome, but it just sort of showed to me how much they sort of overcooked the seriousness of the rest of it, really.
I think it's just bad writing, you know?
Yeah, I think actually, yeah, I mean, I think you're right to say that, and I think it's probably a symptom of writing by committee. You know, one guy's got a bit of a sense of humour, and he didn't get the memo saying that you're not actually supposed to be doing that in this game. So I think it's probably a symptom of that. Now, there is matchmaking, of course. If you don't want to play with a terrible AI, you can play with randoms, but the matchmaking with randoms works pretty much as well as you'd expect it to. In other words, pretty terribly. I mean, it didn't take that long to matchmake, and considering that's a beta period, that in itself is actually a good thing. However, when you're put with a random, they tend to have vastly different ideas of what they want to do and how they want to play the game compared to you. And I would have liked to have seen a way that you could matchmake, you know, basically so everyone agrees that, hey, yeah, we're going to do this mission next, rather than, you know, enter matchmaking when you're doing a mission and get matchmade with the team and they're just driving away from your objective so they can go do something else. Well, I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but Watch Dogs 2 did the same thing, much better. Because basically every time, I mean, I did play the co-op with randoms quite a bit when I first started, just so I could build up some skill research points and all that. And I think basically every time I picked a mission and selected matchmaking for that mission, I got put with someone who was playing that mission. So it really, you know, Ubisoft themselves have already harnessed this power. So I just wish they'd share their notes with Ubisoft Paris. I found it graphically weak. I played it on a base PlayStation 4. I wish I had asked for the PC version now, because the PS4 version did not look great. And Ghost Recon is a series that has traditionally been a good-looking series, but I've got a feeling now that development is now focused on the PS4 Pro, and basically the PS4 is now the poor cousin to that. God knows what it looks like on the Xbone. Yeah, I mean, I've already mentioned it, but guess what? I'm going to mention it again. On the whole, it plays worse than Watch Dogs 2. Watch Dogs 2 does so many things similarly to Ghost Recon, but better, despite being a different style of the same genre. And this is the most important point, and indeed one you quite rightly brought up at the beginning. Metal Gear Solid 5 did all of this far better over 2 years ago now. And that, for me, was my game of the year it released, which I believe was 2015 off the top of my head. So I'm just really disappointed.
Seems like you never know what you're going to get with Ubisoft. You might get Assassin's Creed Syndicate, you might get The Crew, you might get The Division.
I mean, Ubisoft have made really brilliant games, and they still make really brilliant games. I mean, I've already said that I really enjoyed Watch Dogs 2, but you're absolutely right. You just never know what you're going to get with them. I mean, when considering their own, you know, the same series veer all over the place in terms of quality, I actually really quite liked the last Ghost Recon game, Future Soldier, and I totally respect the fact that they've, you know, tried to do something different and made it so that it's completely open world. Because Ghost Recon is a game where, you know, that would absolutely benefit from a well-implemented open world co-op structure. But they just seem to have, they've just done it like The Division not very well, you know?
Is it almost like they've stuck on the Ghost Recon badge just to make it sell?
Well, you remember I said at the beginning it was like a cross between The Division and Far Cry 4. I didn't just pick those two games because they are Ubisoft games. I picked those games because they really, really felt similar to this. And I suspect there's probably been some, I'm saying why can't they share the good ideas? I suspect they've probably shared some of the templates that went into making those two games. And I think you're right, actually. I think there was probably a committee and they said, hey, why don't with Ghost Recon, why don't we take The Division, because The Division was also a Tom Clancy game, and Ghost Recon is a Tom Clancy game. They said, why don't we just take The Division, make it like Far Cry? And I think that's basically what they did.
That's a massive shame, because we really weren't fans of The Division.
Yeah, it's actually just like playing Far Cry 4, but with really clunky, horrible, floaty third-person cover shooter mechanics, and stealth that feels like it's from a game released 7 years ago, to be honest.
That's really disappointing. We had quite high hopes for this.
I was quite looking forward to it, actually. I thought that this was the Ubisoft game. Lots of people are looking forward to For Honor. I was really looking forward to this. Anyway, guys, if you played in the beta, let us know what you think. Do you agree with what we liked and what we didn't like, or do you think we've got it totally arse about face? Tell us in the comments below. Do please also hit the like and subscribe buttons. That helps us out. Loads more at parallaxlive.com. Thanks ever so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys in the next video.